Hi, before we start, I'd just like to say I'm in a different place at the moment. I'm visiting my brother who is rather ill. So if the video quality and the sound quality are not quite up to scratch, that's the reason. Okay, and now let's get into the video. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is trying to curry support among Labour's progressive left, saying she wants to open up new, safe and legal routes for refugees to come to the UK. But are they really new routes for refugees? She has introduced them in her Immigration and Asylum Bill, which also sets out new limits on immigration claims under human rights and modern slavery laws. Labour peer Alf Dubs, himself a former immigrant who came to the UK as a child under the Kinder Transport scheme that helped young Jews flee persecution in Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia, has called Mahmood's plans performative cruelty. He said she should be moved out of the Home Office and her policies abandoned, adding, "This is Labour's reset moment, when we can consign to the past some of the appalling language used by politicians to describe refugees, invaders, an island of strangers, tearing our country apart." The supposed safe routes that Mahmood has described mostly look like nothing more than sponsorship schemes for normal immigration to me. 3 different schemes have been proposed. Community sponsorship, where an approved community group agrees to support a refugee's integration. A university route, allowing refugees to come as students. And an employer sponsorship route, allowing employers to sponsor refugees. The first is already a recognized refugee resettlement model based on a Canadian system. Refugees are still recognized as refugees. The community group isn't deciding their refugee status, only agreeing to help support them once they're admitted. But of course, they have to actually be recognized as refugees first. The second and third are more contentious. If people want to come to the UK to study, isn't there already a legal route through which they can do that? Won't this new university route encourage people to claim they are refugees simply to bypass the rules of the normal system? And the employer-sponsored refugee route is particularly vulnerable to criticism because it blurs 2 concepts that have traditionally been kept separate. Refugee protection, which is based on a well-founded fear of persecution under international law, and labour migration, based on an employer needing particular skills. Historically, a person becomes a refugee because of their circumstances, not because a UK-based employer wants to hire them. If employer sponsorship becomes a gateway into refugee resettlement, the obvious question is whether economic usefulness is becoming part of the selection process. And UK employers can already sponsor overseas workers under the skilled worker system. The obvious question is, what is different about sponsoring a refugee? There are several possibilities. It could be aimed at refugees who are already recognized by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and are living in camps or third countries, allowing UK employers to recruit directly from that pool rather than through normal work visas. It could waive some of the normal skilled worker requirements, such as salary thresholds or qualification rules. Or it could simply create another route into the UK that is labelled refugee sponsorship but functions as economic migration. We don't know the answers to those questions because Mahmood hasn't published the detailed rules yet. It could be normal immigration in disguise, depending on the eligibility criteria, but equally it could remain tightly restricted to people who have already been recognized internationally as refugees. Politically, Mahmood seems to be trying to face in two directions at once. She is arguing that the UK must reduce migration and tighten settlement rules for people who are already here legally, while now proposing new pathways that could increase refugee admissions from hundreds to thousands every year. Critics on the right will say she's opening new routes while claiming to reduce immigration. And those on the left, the people she's trying to woo, will argue she's making life harder for legal migrants while offering only limited new opportunities for refugees. Mahmood has made the situation worse for herself by failing to make her position clear. If she doesn't answer the questions she has raised in the legislation and its accompanying guidance, then I expect Parliament and the courts to pursue them assiduously.